Buddies, what's up? It's Concert Buddy. The video you're about to watch is my thoughts. I'm not an official reviewer, so I'm going to go ahead and say that there. This is my opinions and thoughts upon hearing the brand new Foo Fighters album, but here we are. I just got my physical copy yesterday, so I've listened to it a couple different times, and coming up after the break, I'm going to tell you what I think. Let's go. Now, buddies, full disclosure, I am a Foo Fighters fan. I have been since 1995 when the self-titled album came out. But would I call myself a massive Foo Fighters fan? I don't know. I've seen them probably in concert 5-6 times. Really enjoy them. I think that if you made a greatest hits, a true greatest hits of their work, I would put it up against anybody's because I think start to finish, they've got some real bangers from My Hero to Best of You to, gosh, so many different ones. All that said, last March, I was in Dallas, Texas. We were having dinner with some friends. We were watching a North Carolina basketball game. They're in an NCAA tournament. And I got a text from my son, and he's like, "Hey, did you hear about Taylor Hawkins?" Well, you can kind of surmise that you're getting a random text with a pretty loaded question.
Here we go.
So I was really bummed when Taylor Hawkins passed away, 50 years old. It was crazy. I'm like closer to that than I'd like to admit, but I digress. But to think that arguably some of the spirit of that band left. You know, obviously Dave Grohl is front and center. He's the song maker. He's a gifted musician, one of probably the best musicians, the greatest musicians of my lifetime. I know that's perhaps hyperbole, but I'm just sharing my opinions with you.
It's yeah.
So it's obviously Dave Grohl's band, but Taylor Hawkins in a lot of ways was a spirit, and you have to have some big to be able to drum in a band with arguably one of the best rock drummers or most famous rock drummers of all time out in front, singing songs, playing guitar. And then Taylor had some, side stuff he was doing. Like I saw him, I think it was a couple years ago, we saw him, he had a side project, like a fun cover band called Chevy Metal. He had a couple different projects like Taylor Hawkins and the Red Tail Riders, something like that. A lot of different things. Anyway, big loss for the band, big loss for popular rock music. And it kind of made you wonder what the band was going to do next. Was it going to continue? Because, they're getting older. They're 50s, right? Pat Smear, I think, is the oldest guy in the band. I mean, how much longer can you do this? And admittedly, and as you can kind of see, Foo Fighters just nonstop from their output on their albums to touring all the time. Dave Grohl is a workhorse. He is just balls to the wall. All that said, Taylor passes away. Future of the band's in doubt. And then in August, Dave Grohl's mother, Virginia, who's a huge influence on his life. If you know anything about Dave, she was a school teacher, allowed him to drop out of school. It's kind of counterintuitive. A teacher, your parent teacher, allowed you to drop out of school to pursue your passion, music. So, if you've read interviews, read his autobiography came out a couple years ago, you would know that his mom was a huge influence in his life. So in August, she passes away. So naturally, I guess to Dave, the idea of this grief and feelings and all these things compound and coalesce into this album. But here we are. And I got to say, I read some reviews in advance, and I didn't want to spoil the sauce, but I was genuinely intrigued to see how this would turn out. I did my pre-order. It's a $20 record. I got the indie exclusive, Amazon exclusive. I don't know whose isn't exclusive allegedly. Everything now is an exclusive, or it's limited, or that's a whole other video.
They go to the highest bidder.
But I got the white vinyl, and it's a great album. It really is. It reminds me, some of the reviews I read were saying this is the best Foo Fighters album in 20 years. So I was kind of doing my math. And to me, 2011's Wasting Light is probably my favorite Foo Fighters album. It's definitely one of their top 3 albums. But to say that any album is better than that. I mean, I think it was Consequences of Sounds reviewer said that. So I was like, So that kind of made me sit up, take notice. I've read some other reviews, New York Times, NPR, etc. Said similar things. So I streamed the album when it came out Friday morning, I guess. Start to finish. Really, it was very interesting. I started hearing some feedback from different buddies. Like, man, this is a great Foo Fighters album. Return to form, a lot of different things. We're exchanging feedback. And so then I got the vinyl that day. I put it on that night. I've even listened to it a third time this morning as I'm filming this. I went for a run. And I got to agree, it's probably the best Foo Fighters album, I don't know, in 20 years. I'd say probably since the early 2000s. And again, taking Wasting Light out of the equation. I say that because it reminds me a lot of that period of the band. It's a lot more throttle, a lot more, for lack of a better word, like unpolished. Like the last couple of albums, I'll be honest, Minutes to Midnight and Concrete and Gold, okay. But it felt like it was just kind of, going through the motions a little bit. And I know if you go back in the band's history, if you go back 5-10 years, you could see after Wasting Light, they made the documentary about it. Dave started doing other creative projects. He did the Sound City documentary. Then he did the Sonic Highways album/documentary where they created a new song in each city and told the history of music through the song and through the documentary. They did the Dream Widow horror movie 666 thing. So Dave's been doing other things. So clearly it hasn't felt like entirely the focus has been on music. That's not a shot. That's just, acknowledging a creative person looking for other sources of inspiration. I think even after the Sonic Highways project, or a little bit before it, I remember in an interview David said, like, yeah, I'm probably going to take some time off and kind of recharge, figure out our next steps, etc. And then in less than a year, another album come out. So all that said, this album is really good. From the first song, Rescued, to the last song, Rest, which is a really, really heart-pulling, strong song. It's just a very good album. The musicianship is great, obviously. Without Taylor in the band, kind of had a feeling when you heard this album was coming out that Dave was going to do the drum work, which he did, and you can definitely hear that difference. Not in a great way, not in a bad way, and that's not a slight at Taylor and his abilities at all, but there's just more spirit, and obviously you never want to say that an artist or a band's best output comes through grief, but it is definitely a driving, inspirational factor in a lot of the songs you hear. Personally, some of my favorite tracks, I really liked the third song, which is Hearing Voices. This powerful song. I mean, if you interpret every song as some kind of homage either to Taylor's passing or his mother's passing, you can kind of hear some of those echoes, some of that sentiment through these verses, through the songs. Some of the songs had already been leaked out pre-release, like Rescued. The one I really enjoyed is like almost a 10-minute song called The Teacher. Again, his mother, Virginia, teacher. I think one of the chorus is really, hey kid, what's your plan for tomorrow? Something that if you think about Dave's journey of dropping out of school and chasing music, you can kind of almost hear that conversation between Virginia and Dave, like, all right, let you drop out of school. What's the plan? Anyway, just really good stuff. It's hard for me to say that this is the best Foo Fighters album ever because they've really had some fantastic albums, from Color and Shape to In Your Honor. Really great catalog. Again, the last couple albums, I think universally, and maybe even the band would attest to this, weren't exactly the creative zenith. Decent stuff. I mean, I saw them tour on the Minutes to Midnight album, and it's nice. It's a nice album. Is it their best? No way. This is, again, I hate to use someone else's words, a return to form in the sense that it's got a lot more heart, and it's got a lot more uncleanliness, unpolished, if that's a word, unpolished. Even a song like The Glass, the chorus is, I see your reflection in me, I see me in your reflection, something like that. Again, I'm going off the top of my head here. I mean, you can just, a lot of the themes that as I'm getting older, I can kind of empathize with, losing friends, losing loved ones, all that stuff. I mean, it's that point in life that I am. They're obviously 10 plus years older than I am, the band. But all that said, more music on this album that I really could connect with in just 3 listens than Concrete and Gold, Minutes to Midnight, all that stuff. Anyway, I will say, talking about the record specifically, mass produced, it plays well, plays fine, sounded great. You know, not exactly the flattest record I have, not exactly the craziest record I have. It's just, you know, again, these pressing plants treating it like widgets. I got to look up who exactly pressed my copy. I wouldn't be surprised if it was somebody like United. I'll just leave it there. But anyway, I'm not a reviewer. I generally don't do this type of stuff on the channel, as you've seen if you've been watching me for any amount of time. But I would recommend picking this record up, or at least streaming it and seeing what you think, because I do think for all the things that Dave and the band have went through in the last year plus, this is a really interesting way to document and tell some of those stories, share some of those feelings and emotions through music, which is always a real powerful thing if you think about it. Anyway, but here we are. The title track, by the way, really good too. I think, you know, sometimes these albums, the title tracks is kind of like meh, but I think the title track here, I went in thinking low expectations, and it really knocked it out of the park. So, but here we are. It's the 11th album from the Foo Fighters. Safe to say their best output in years. Best album in 20 years? I don't know. I understand where that reviewer was coming from, but again, Wasting Light, 2011, one of my favorite albums, bar none. But here we are. Terrific album. Stream it. Check it out. Give it a taste. Eat it from the buffet a couple times. And let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Maybe you think the Foo Fighters are trash, or Dave Grohl's a sellout, or whatever. But at the end, it's music. Really, the most important thing about music, and hopefully you can agree, is it elicits feelings and emotions and connectivity, one way or another, to the music. And this album, I felt more connected to the band than I had in the last 2 or 3 albums. So, more power to you guys, Foo Fighters. Buddies, that's all I got for this video. Tell me what you think below. Tell me what you think about this album. I would love to interact with you guys and hear kind of your thoughts on the tracks and even the song that Violet Grohl, his 17-year-old daughter, participated on. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that as well. All that said, buddies, until I see you next time, when you get the chance to listen to this album or any other pickup that you've got from your local record store, Discogs, or places in between, when you get the chance, just spin it. See you next time.
Well, well, well. How the turntables...
Well, we out of time.